What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch with a huge news roundup. Aaron Keller gave us a developer update via blog post today. The World Cup is back on and the Overwatch League is in shambles. Let's start with the dev update. Aaron Keller says, "Hi everyone. This piece is aimed at looking at some of the topics that have come up in our community over the course of Season 2. This won't be comprehensive enough to look at everything that players are talking about, but our intent is to do this every few weeks, so we'll be able to start diving into smaller topics as we go. Also, the goal here is to keep you up to date on what we're thinking and planning, but not necessarily to be the source for all the reasoning and detail behind those decisions." And he says that because I think the bigger in-depth blog posts that we've had before are intended for that. This is more of an overview just to keep up to date and keep us in touch, which, to be fair, is kind of exactly what we've been asking for when we want sort of a This Week at Bungie style blog. Well, this every few weeks from Aaron Keller checking in is about as good as we can ask for, I think. To get a break from Overwatch, I've been playing Mech Arena, a fully fledged PvP shooter game on my cell phone. The gameplay is competitive and addictive. The dual rocket launchers are my favorite, and I like to see and hear my enemy mechs explode. Use my QR code right now and get a free starter pack worth $30. And if you're quick, you can add me on your friends list. We've gotten feedback from players that the game doesn't feel rewarding enough to play and that players can't earn the items they want in a short enough period of time. We'll be making a change in Season 3 that should address some of these complaints. This is a first step. We will have more details to share about this next week. Those of you that follow the channel closely would have seen the rewards update video we did, because this has already been announced on Twitter, but Aaron's detailing even more changes to the unlock system than before. We already knew that we were going to have more agency on selecting the exact item or reward we will want, but here he's saying that items will be even easier to gain. So does that mean the challenges will be more rewarding? Is there a new way to earn more currency or something else entirely? Next subject, he says there are a fair number of changes to ult cost in Season 3. We'll be lowering the ult refund when swapping to heroes to 25% as part of this tuning pass. So that itself is a cupcake nerf, but in previous messaging, they had said that they don't like how often ultimates are coming up. Way back in the day, in Overwatch 1, a few times I believe, they increased the global cost of all ultimates. Perhaps something like that is on the table, but since he says there are a fair number of changes to ult cost in Season 3, it sounds more complicated than that. A mechanic that I think is a bit complicated when it comes to ult cost is the fact that you earn less ult shooting and healing a tank. Yes, I'm back on the role passives, but if they were considering trying to make supports feel more impactful, simply just removing the penalty for healing your tank when it comes to ult charge, while also maybe nerfing ult gain elsewhere, would give a significant boost to the support player's performance. Because if everybody's kind of earning ult at the same rate, it's harder to gain a support ult gap. Whereas in Overwatch 1, it was more common that if you were losing fights, you were healing more because the enemy was doing more damage to you. That sort of happens in Overwatch 2, but because of the whole tank thing, not really. There's negative byproducts to that gameplay as well, where you'll just face tank to get an early support ult and engage with it. Not sure if I like or dislike that, but that kind of idea might take us a step further away from the more shooty elements of the game and put more power into the support player's hands. But that's all just speculation from me. Aaron goes on to say, balance frequency is a big topic. Bug fixes to hot fixing should enable us to address balance faster and would have enabled us to tune Hog earlier in Season 2. We're still planning an initial and mid-season patch end of season, but now have the full ability to fill in between those as necessary. One-shots and frustrating hero mechanics are being discussed a lot in the community and on the team. This is an ongoing discussion, but the topic has a lot of nuances that involves the frequency of those mechanics, trade-offs for using it, the overall power level of a hero, and how often the hero is played, as well as things like a hero's fantasy. Know that we're listening here. The feedback has been great and very welcome, and we'll come back to this when we have more to share. Our previous video covering the interview with Alec Dawson, lead hero designer, indicated that they were looking at even more one-shots and burst damage. Widowmaker, Hanzo, and Junkrat's nades rolling on the floor randomly, I think is what Aaron's talking about here. But I think specifically what Aaron's talking about is Sojourn. where on one hand, it's part of the hero fantasy to have a viable railgun, but on the other hand, she's been dominating top-level gameplay for the entire launch of Overwatch 2. My opinion actually is top-level players going to complain about whatever hero is top of meta no matter what. Even when a lot of players like Genji being a top pick, not everyone loves him. I'm kind of with Aaron on this one because the hero fantasy of Sojourn is to be a run-and gunner with a railgun. So while they can completely neuter the kit to make her just Soldier 76 with a jump, we gotta acknowledge that there's trade-offs to the fun factor of the game when trying to balance, because more than likely what happens is you just keep nerfing Sojourn and before you know it, you just play Widowmaker instead. And is that any better? I guess a bit. There's a better trade-off for Widowmaker to get those one-shots, but there's always going to be something oppressive at the highest tiers of play. If you followed the game long enough, it's rare that there are actually multiple comps that are deemed viable at the same time. And considering how little time that the community has had on this patch and how little high-level gameplay that we've seen, because like ranked doesn't figure out the meta. They figured out the ranked meta, but a lot of the really broken strategies come out of pro play because they're grinding the synergies in a team environment. Then when enough players can look and point to and play copycat with those strategies, then it trickles down into ranked. But without having that, every single time we're on an OWL off-season, the ranked meta has gotten more scrimmy in nature because the teamwork and execution-based plays aren't as solved yet. Now, despite all these points being factual and reasonable, I'm sure many of you are throwing tomatoes at the screen because we just want Sojourn dumpstered. I'm not against the idea of the breakpoint for damage amp on her railgun to not one-shot kill or have more of a severe range drop-off. When they played with those range numbers with Ashe, I felt like they finally, after lots and lots of tweaks, got the Ashe plus Mercy pocket into a very healthy spot. Maybe the range and distance of it is what they got to do. Ashe is a really good example because her coach gun is on a 10-second cooldown. With how powerful Power Slide is from Sojourn, it probably should be the same amount, to be honest, because it gets you much farther away from your enemy, and Sojourn's hitbox already is hard to hit. I think especially nerfing that won't take away the player fantasy. And also, some of the recent changes have just not made much sense. Why make the rail better in any way if average tier players can't hit it anyway? While I agree the primary fire should probably do 9 damage per shot, and I like the rail charge changes to make it more consistent but also not damage boostable, all good ideas, with the spread increase still remaining, she's still a high skill tier hero where she's about hitting the rail and running away until you get another rail. If they want to boost her for lower ranks but nerf her for upper ranks, you think they would do it the other way around, where they should make the primary fire more reliable because it's easier to hit, just like Soldier's weapon, but the rail less crucial. Remember, way back ago, Jake suggested that they just take away the headshot multiplier unless it's in her ultimate. I kind of like that idea. And also take away the fire rate on the ultimate, please. Beyond that, you want a lot of variety in competitive gameplay, as opposed to needing to play a small subset of meta heroes. You should be asking for a format change like I have been for 100 years. The Overwatch World Cup is coming back, and it looks like they're upgrading it this time around. 36 selected countries and regions will be battling it out for 16 spots at the LAN finals. The trials will take place in the final 3 weekends in February, but they're also opening up 4 additional spots for wildcard teams to be introduced. The World Cup always had a packed BlizzCon stadium for the finals, and once in a while somebody beats South Korea. But with one hand the spirit of Jeff Kaplan giveth, with the other hand he taketh. We already know that the Overwatch League teams are collectively bargaining against Activision Blizzard due to high operation costs, lackluster viewership, and poor profitability. Now on top of that, with Blizzard's deal with NetEase going south, all of Blizzard games are already unavailable in China. The Chengdu Hunters tweeted out a goodbye, and there's been rumors that there won't be any Chinese teams in the Overwatch League next year. And further rumors, if it even exists at all, with how much pressure is mounting from all sides. However, this article from The Gamer says they spoke to a Blizzard representative, and they said there will be changes in 2023 to the Overwatch League, which will be revealed soon. Blizzard says that it expects a full slate of teams from the East and West. Either way, though, it's a bit troubling for the Overwatch League considering they hung their hat on the Chinese viewership for so long. While I assume you'll still be able to get the streams on the platforms that the Chinese viewers watch the game on, if they can't play it, you gotta imagine they're going to go to other games, such as maybe Valorant, which just recently came out in China properly. Up to this point, players had to use a VPN to play in China, which now they'll need to do to play Overwatch and other Blizzard games. On the plus side, though, the split regions between East and West have been a bit lopsided. There feels like there's too few teams in one region and too many in the other. And while there is quite a few Chinese players in the league, it seems likely that a lot of the teams could just operate out of South Korea, but only time will tell. A casual fan might look at this news a little bit excited, considering the Overwatch League kind of pulls the game towards it a little bit, and in some specific instances, directly to it, which of course makes the game impossible to balance properly when the ways people play it, whether it's full team, high level, solo queue, medal ranks, casually, are so disparate. You can't have a one-size-fits-all solution and expect all those different groups to be